What's up everyone, it's the Chungler, and I'm here with Chapter 9 of my FE8 Ephraim route efficiency playthrough. Because this is the first map I'll be doing commentary for, and we have some downtime before the map starts, I thought I would explain a little bit about the run and its purpose. I did a similar playthrough for ORKO route, and I've been having a lot of fun with FE8, so I wanted to try Ephraim route too. It gets a bad rap sometimes for having frustrating or annoying maps, and I wanted to see how I felt about it after an efficiency playthrough where I try maximizing reliability. Speaking of maximizing reliability, that's kind of the purpose of this run, to get a low turn count while making strategies as reliable as possible. Well, what do I mean by reliable? First, we want to eliminate any chance for our units to die as much as we can, because needing to reset a map would add a lot to our turn count, and it's annoying and not fun. Similarly, when a unit does have to face a chance of death, a chance to die on turn 1 is better than the same chance to die on turn 3, because if the unit dies, we don't have to go back as far. Since this is full recruitment, any unit dying is a reset. I also won't be using any kind of Lua script that displays GBA random numbers. Next, while playing a map, we don't want to rely on low accuracy attacks hitting or bank on any crits to happen, because obviously, sometimes they don't. If I need to hit an attack with less than 90% displayed accuracy, I try to always have a backup unit that can get the kill if the attack misses. This isn't always possible, but it's something to strive for. Third consideration is our own player level ups. We don't want to rely on our units hitting or going above their averages in certain stats because sometimes they don't. Sometimes, people use patches to ensure a unit only gains a stat if they're 90% likely to do so. I'm not using a patch like this, partially because I like random level ups and having to adjust to them, and partially because I want to show off some strategies you can do if your units get a little bit luckier with their throws than a 90% binomial patch will allow. I'll do my best to make note of when a unit leveling a stat that's not 90% likely makes a strategy possible or easier in commentary or the description. Another consideration is enemy stat rolls. Enemies in GBA and other Fire Emblems have a range of stats they can roll depending on their class growth, so an enemy on a map won't always have the same stats as they did the last time you reset. I try to account for this range when playing a map to make sure the strategy works regardless of what the enemy rolls. Lastly are EXP considerations. Units that are being trained long-term need to kill a lot of enemies to level up. When I train a unit, I try to overfeed them compared to where they need to be. If a unit needs to promote at level 10, I try to feed them more experience than they need. If someone were to try and follow my strats, I want them to have a bit of an EXP buffer to account for random crits or misses that could change how much EXP a unit gets. The strategies in this run are meant to show how fast you could reasonably go turn count-wise without rigging. Now, there are still some key differences between my run and someone who might start a run and just wants to play reliably for fun. I did a lot of planning for some of these chapters, considering aspects like enemy AI movement and optimizing rescue chains, that I think isn't reasonable for even a good player to get right on their first playthrough of a map. I certainly didn't. For example, I might reset if I placed a unit one tile farther to the left than they were supposed to be, so I could show off the strats I took a long time planning, but I wouldn't expect an efficiency player to do the same. Sometimes it's more reasonable to accept the mistake and move on, maybe losing a turn in the process. In the same vein, sometimes your strategy just doesn't work out like you thought, but you're on turn 5, so resetting would feel like a waste. In my case, I have fun redoing chapters for those little optimizations, but it's not for everyone. I'll link a video in the description that gives a more thorough explanation of what ETC is, which this run is modeled after. The main difference is I won't calculate ETC for each clear because I'm bad at math. I will talk generally about the reliability of the clear in commentary. Now with our preps done, we're just in time to get into the map itself. Chapter 9 is a long siege map, and an LTC would complete it in around 8 turns. We completed in 9, which gives us some leniency with Seth's movement towards me. It's similar to our 5x clear. We're taking an extra turn, lets Ephraim get a bunch of EXP because he wasn't required to be in Orson saddlebags the whole map. An important thing about siege maps and efficiency compared to LTC that I've found is that the lore doesn't have to be carried by the lead unit as often as you might think. A unit trailing the lead unit can often just give the lord to the lead right before the lord needs to be dropped. In this clear, that means Seth doesn't have to face rescue penalties at all during combat. This is harder to pull off in an LTC, where you have fewer units that can realistically keep pace with your lead unit. You can see an example of this in an 8-turn clear of this map by Jumpy23, where around the middle of the map, the good mounts get completely detached from the rest of the army. Our main focus on turn 1 of this map is to rescue drop our 5-move units as far forward as we can get them, as well as creating as many staff targets as possible for turn 2 for our 3 staffers we want staff EXP on. For example, we have Seth kill an armor knight with a steel sword on turn 1 to lower his void, and equip Kyle with a steel lance so that when he gets attacked by a fighter he's more likely to get hit. We also have Joshua, who attacks a fighter, and if Kyle didn't hit his steel lance on enemy phase, can also take a counter. There's also the Sleep Staff Priest, who is going to try and put to sleep one of our low-res cavaliers, potentially giving us a restore target as well. We do some more rescue drops with our mounts that aren't as important for combat. One is with Natasha, so she can just keep up eventually, and the other is for Ephraim, who we want to be in range of 2 cavaliers on turn 2 enemy phase, so that they suicide on him. His low-ish defenses are actually kind of nice here, because it means instead of the cavaliers attacking someone like Kyle or Ford, they'll attack Ephraim, but he still has enough bulk to not get 2-shot, and he obviously destroys them on counter. Seth kills an archer in his way on this turn, but if we were going for an 8 turn, we would have to have Kyle kill this archer, which our Kyle doesn't have enough speed to do reliably. And that's only one of the problems with the 8 turn. Another one is the boss kill, which you'll see later in the map, Seth can't do reliably in 1 round. Our other issue is the hallway full of enemies you might have noticed on the right. Our non-Seth mounts have trouble killing the mercenaries and armor knights reliably, so it's very easy for them to block our path to the throne. Overall, it didn't seem worth going for because of the shitty boss kill chance and the ramifications it has on combat and staff EXP. Ephraim's fight against the Cavaliers also helps create a staff target for Artur, though the chance that he'll level up during this is pretty high, so he'll likely be missing a point of HP anyway from his level up. This is why it's oftentimes easier to find staff targets in Gross than in 0%, because random HP level ups can help you out that way. Kyle kills the soldier blocking the way to the door, but Seth actually isn't going to open it yet, which might seem a little weird. But as soon as we open the door, the enemies on the inside will start moving towards us, which we don't want. Particularly because there's a recruitable character on the inside who starts moving as well. If she gets to move on this enemy phase, on the next turn, Seth will be in her range. I'll leave to the imagination what happens when Amelia tries to fight Seth. Instead though, this enemy phase is mainly about Seth massacring a bunch of cavaliers. Why they decide to go for Seth, I don't really understand. We do have a contingency plan in place in case they do decide to go for someone like Artur, and that's for Joshua to kill them next turn. But if they're just going to go ahead and go after Seth, we'll take it. We can also all have a good laugh about the Horse Slayer Armor Knight that tries to attack Seth. If he does get hit, we will want to heal him eventually, but it's really not a problem for the short term. One of the Cavaliers drops a heavy spear, which we will actually get some decent use out of later in the playthrough. We'll start cleaning up the Cavaliers that don't die to Seth next turn. There's also that Sleep Priest that keeps bothering us, but we actually position Calm so that the Sleep Priest goes to exactly that tile, and you'll see why in a little bit. There's also some Shamans that spawn in the bottom left, will be a minor annoyance for us. We have to kill them with pretty weak units. Ford will now open the door for our Paladins, but Seth is blocked from moving forward, so Kyle is going to kill one of the knights with the armorslayer. I would have liked him to use the heavy spear because he's able to one-shot an armor knight, but I couldn't figure out a way to get it on him this turn. Artur is Kyle's backup in case he misses, but is able to heal him if he doesn't. It's nice that he's able to get a heal in, but we can work around him having to kill the armor knight instead. Now that the armor knight is cleared out, Seth is going to almost move his full move this turn. Just one tile short so that he's not in range of Amelia. From now on, he'll be full moving until he drops Ephraim. If Seth isn't able to double the mercenary 2 tiles above him, he'll need to attack him with a javelin so that he suicides on enemy phase. This doesn't make a difference because Ephraim's going to kill the armor knight next turn anyway, and you should already have a good idea of what Ephraim does to unpromoted armor knights and cavaliers. On this enemy phase, you'll see that there's 3 enemies left alive that Seth has already ran past, so we'll need to utilize our 2 next best combat units, Joshua and Ephraim, to dispatch them. Seth needs to dispatch the 2 mages on the right side of the hallway, because there'll be pretty big problems for our units that are going to fill up the hallway next turn. He has very good hit rates with the javelin, but I would have liked S-Lances here to guarantee that he kills all of them. The enemies on the side of this hallway are a bit weird. The archer on the right side has a longbow, and the archers on the left have steel bows. So the archer on the right won't suicide onto Seth, will instead attack Kyle. Surprisingly, this isn't actually too bad for us. The positioning of the archer actually makes it so the javelin cavalier that attacks forward attacks from a small inlet in the wall, trapping himself in. This lets us trap him inside with Joshua on player phase, and then finish him off on enemy phase with the killing edge. When accounting for killing edge crits, this gives us around a 93% chance to kill the cavalier by the next player phase. We're now ready to recruit Emilia, which we can do with either Ephraim or Franz. Because Ephraim is busy killing the armor knight, we'll do it with Franz, which is actually a pretty nice contribution for him. Emilia is a level 1 trainee, just like Ross in Chapter 2, but she joins so much later that she's going to be way worse and has no ability to contribute at all. She comes with our first Speedwing though, so even though she's terrible, we still would probably want to recruit her anyway. Kyle chugs a Pure Water here, which could have been avoided potentially with some deployment order rearrangement, but I wanted to guarantee that the Sleep Priest in the boss room doesn't target him. I would have really appreciated having the Pure Water later though. Note that Kyle picked up Ephraim in preparation to give him to Seth next turn, who will drop him, meaning that next turn and the turn he seizes are the only turns that Ephraim needs to waste inside saddlebags. I wouldn't blame you for starting to sweat as this enemy phase starts, because Emilia is now a blue unit, and we have the unfortunate obligation of keeping her alive. That Sleep Priest to her left was baited into that exact spot so that he would block a Steelbow archer from killing Emilia. We also had to leave a mercenary in the hallway alive, so we needed to form a wall with Ford and Artur. Instead, the mercenary will go for Tank Natasha, who actually has the perfect stat spread to take him on. She doesn't get doubled and has high enough HP to not get one shot. Her high luck also ensures that she faces no crit chance. This sets up Joshua to kill the merc next turn. Emilia needs to face this turn is a longbow archer, which she thankfully survives. Seth is busy killing some mages near the top of the map, which is actually important so that Franz, who needs to go to that part of the map next turn, doesn't have to take them on. Franz and Thunder Mages really don't mix well. While we've got some downtime, I'll talk about something that happened a few turns ago. Vanessa killed one of the shamans that spawned in the bottom left of the map with a javelin. If she didn't kill this guy because she didn't have enough strength or because her javelins didn't hit, he would be kind of annoying. Colm could help Moulder and make sure he doesn't have to face any crit from the shamans, but honestly, it was probably a better idea to bring Garcia over Colm so he could 1-2 range them if needed. You'll see why Colm in particular got deployed later though. Artur heals Kyle one last time, and now it's time for them to break away from the rest of the army and head towards the throne. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but there's actually a Sleep Priest in the throne room, and we need to make sure Kyle doesn't get slept at all. After recruiting Emilia last turn, Franz can just barely be in range of the Sleep Priest. Seth is going to drop Ephraim so that he can seize in 3 turns. It also lets him get some enemy phase EXP, because the soldier and mage near him will attack, but won't be able to kill him. Depending on your Ephraim's stats, it might be better to have him equip the Regan Leaf so you can make sure he kills the soldier, but either way, Kyle will be there to clean up whatever Ephraim can't. Now that she's actually going to contribute something, I should probably talk about the Pegasus stuck in the top part of the map, that we're never going to go to, but she joins us automatically. Her name is Tana, and she's going to help bait a Javelin Cavalier away from the rest of our units so that Franz doesn't have to deal with him. Tana will be a really important unit in the next few maps because of her flight, but this is all she's going to get to do right now. Now that we've dispatched most of the enemies there, this middle hallway is where the rest of our units who aren't headed to the throne are going to hang out. This mage that attacks Ephraim is going to die, but like I said earlier, if he doesn't, we have ways to work around it. We can have Ephraim heal instead of killing the Armor Knight next turn, have Seth kill the Armor Knight, and then have Kyle attack the mage. Franz gets hit by a sleep staff here, which is pretty nice because it allows us to use Restore instead of Mend with Artur. and we're running down the uses on our last mend stat, so anytime we can get the same amount of weapon EXP without a mend use, we'll take it. Our other two healers are just healing stragglers at this point, but if they end up missing a heal somewhere, it's not a big deal because their staff rank benchmarks aren't nearly as tight as Artur. Since Franz got restored instead of mended this turn, we'll make sure he swaps positions with Ford and gets a break from dealing with the cavaliers this turn. Joshua is going to kill an archer with the iron blade this turn, but I probably just should have used a more accurate weapon. I was still pretty concerned about Joshua reaching S swords in time, but he hit that well before he needed to. So something like the iron sword would have been better here, because I don't really need the weapon EXP. Joshua's combat EXP ended up being a much more important benchmark to worry about. I have Vanessa attack the sleep priest here with the javelin. This probably wasn't even worth it, because she could have 1% crit him and left room for an archer to kill her instead. Because last enemy phase, none of the enemies that attacked Ephraim were left alive, he's able to kill this armor knight for EXP, because he one-shots and doesn't have to take a counter even though he's very low. Seth will grab the axereaver that Ephraim just picked up from the armor knight, and then move a tile forward so that Ephraim can't get crit by the shortbow archer. Since there won't be anything interesting going on in this enemy phase, I'll talk a little bit about the boss that Seth's going to be fighting next turn. His name is Gheb and he's a warrior, but he only has axes equipped. He has an iron axe that he starts with equipped, and a killer axe that he can switch to on enemy phase. Seth needs 2 rounds of combat to kill him reliably with any of the weapons he has. But Seth would also die to a killer axe crit. Seth with the axereaver equipped faces only 9 displayed hit and 20 crit from Gheb, which is around a 0.5% chance total to die. But as low as that is, a turn 8 reset would be terrible. We'd have to play this entire map again, essentially. I still ended up risking the chance of death, instead of going for a safer strategy, where Kyle would rescue Seth after he attacks on player phase. You'd lose around 2 turns doing this, which I didn't think was worth it, instead of just risking the very small chance of death. Thankfully though, Seth has a relatively high chance to crit Gheb, and even more so if he has S lances, so that makes his chance of death even lower. Well, since I've already talked about the boss kill, there's even fucking less to talk about on this player phase. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our units' growths, and where they are in terms of long-term stat benchmarks that they need to hit. Since Joshua just leveled up right now, let's talk about him. He's -2 on skill, which sucks for what he has to do much later, but for that same task, he needs to hit 18 to 19 speed. He just hit 18, and he'll get to 19 pretty soon. He's around +1 here on speed compared to average, but he'll get some more level ups too. Vanessa is about to level up too, so let's talk about her. Her most important stats are HP and defense, stats that she honestly doesn't have great growths in. I want her to hit a combined 22 HP and 8 defense by chapter 10, which is next map, which she's actually going to hit right here. This isn't very reliable at all, but even if she doesn't hit it, it won't actually affect the clear of that map. It just means we don't get a stat booster that we would have liked. My Ephraim right now is going to sail past his EXP target. His speed is actually doing really well, which isn't really a stat he needs, but it does help him get even more EXP by being able to double a bunch of stuff with the javelin. His most important stats are HP, defense, and resistance. He needs to survive an enemy phase much later in the game that requires a good amount of bulk to do. If he doesn't hit the benchmark, he'll be able to hit it basically guaranteed with some stat boosters, but they're boosters that we would like to give to someone else if we can afford to. Seth is going to get some fat EXP from taking out Gheb and is going to get a level up in the process. After this level up, he's essentially average or slightly below average in every stat except for skill, where he's fucking crushing it and it's like +3 already, which is amazing. It really helps mitigate that I didn't end up giving Seth S lances, so I'm pretty happy about it. Artur's only important stat benchmark is hitting 12 attack much later in the game, and he's already hit it, so that's great. We would like him to get some luck if he can though, so that he avoids facing crit from generic enemies. Right now, he has gotten 1 luck proc, so that saves him against most stuff right now. Everyone else's level ups are varying degrees of useless, but we did train Franz so he could do some small stuff for us next map. Now, it's time for Colm's one contribution on this map. He's gonna steal the red gem from this longbow archer, which gets us a whopping 2,500 gold. This is of vital importance, because we eventually need to visit the secret shop and buy a bunch of energy rings and bolting tones. Huh? Sorry, what was that? Really? Okay, I'm being informed that this is JP only. They'll call me useless. Well, after Seth commits a quick war crime, we're going to be able to seize in 9 turns. Thank you all for watching, and join me next time. See ya.